Let's start with a very interesting story from ancient_educator_76. Only teach what's on the test? No problem. About 2 months ago, I worked for an absolute tyrant of an administrator. Dude was terrible. Terrible enough to warrant me writing in the apparent point of view of a 48-year-old teacher wishing he was Sigma. But I digress. Before working for this school, I was teaching 8th grade math, 4th grade math, or being an academic coach for the previous 18 or so years. I switched school primarily due to location. I found a school on the other side of the mountain I stare at nightly and figured it was a good match. Nope. This admin, we'll call him Pop and Fresh, shut me down every step of the way. I entered the school middle of the school year with very rough kids, and my first day training the academic coach for the school and district trained us up on this math ELA anything you want gaming program called GimKit. I understand that GimKit isn't education in and of itself. It's simply a 5-minute tool to find out if kids know the content, and it engages the kids greatly. My first day with students, I saw their terrible behaviours. They ran 2 other teachers out of there evidently. So I decided it was going to take a little bit of grace to get them to listen to me. I showed them GimKit. They had popped open their Chromebooks for no more than 30 seconds when TA, terrible admin Pop and Fresh, came in and shut it down instantly. He never assesses the situation. He just sees kids on hokey-looking activities as he literally pops in the classroom, bouncing around like he's on something. Anyway, this happened all the time. I would instruct for no more than 8 minutes tops and walk around and help them with concepts the best I could. I would be walking around, he would pop in and tell me to change something, like clockwork. Every program or strategy or center-based activity I try to use to get the 7th graders motivated gets shut down instantly, and he finally says out loud, "Teach only what's on the tests, nothing more." Bet. I took this as an opportunity to enter some MC with a side of, I can't believe I'm here. I start going by the book 100%. Anytime a student asks, why do we do it like this? When we are working on surface area and volume, I only say, that's not on the test. Anytime I naturally find an urge to find a connection to other standards, I stop myself. It's not on the test. Over a short amount of time, students are frustrated and sitting there yawning. It pains me greatly, so I decide to only apply my MC when good old Pop and Fresh pops his way back into my classroom. He finally pops in with his boss's boss, and a couple of people I've never seen before. I instantly switch from my going deeper, thinking outside the box, activity-based learning to exactly what he wants. Teaching only what's on the test. I instantly turn into Ben Stein from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and the kids instantly groan saying, "Mr. OP, I hate when you teach us like this." Comments from the students fly about the room. This is the worst part of my day. I hate math now, thanks. And many much more colourful, expletive-laden commentary. Frank Caliendo even popped in for a spell. Now here's a guy who doesn't know how to motivate students. Boom. Pop and Fresh even doubled down on his usual banter, putting on a show for his crew of bosses. These kids seem highly unmotivated OP. We need to meet about this if you can't get them engaged. I interjected, "You said to only teach what's on the test, so that's what I'm doing. Only what's on the test, right? Like if they wanted to know why this happens or that happens, or how to solve this different way. That's not on the test, right? You told me just to be up and be teaching and never have them on their Chromebooks, right?" I said this to him, in definite earshot of his accompanying party, mainly because I had a feeling these were the head honchos, the ones who signed off on spending all that money to make our school a true one-to-one school. A school where every student has a Chromebook. Not utilising the Chromebooks is something I knew that was something Pop and Fresh believed in, but I had a feeling that the district would want the kids properly utilising them. He answered back to me, "I only stopped you from using the Chromebooks because the kids were all just playing games." The students interject then, "It's a math game." The head honcho moved to Interjection City. "Well, let's see what this math game is all about." I had the kids get their Chromebooks. They all excitedly logged on. I pulled up a surface area and volume GIM kit, and the kids were feverishly playing the game, using pencils and notebooks to solve the problems needed to be answered to gain ammunition in their game. It was active. It was fun for all. I paused the game when needed to show different ways to isolate the variable when solving surface area problems, especially of spheres and cones, etc. It was what education was supposed to be. Pop and Fresh ran out of pop, and by the end of the day, I received an email from the head honcho himself asking me about him and how things were going. I was honest with him. I told him about his assaults, threats of assaults, and hiding assaults. All things that I'm sure would be an interesting part of this tale, but they aren't related to the MC inherent here. It's also an ongoing investigation, even 2 months later as I'm teaching at a new school on the other side of the proverbial mountain. Pop and Fresh is under investigation for what he's been doing to me and other new teachers, to the school, and it's crawling all the way up the chain. This malicious compliance was masterclass. It was subtle, strategic, and utterly satisfying. By strictly following orders, OP exposed the admin's incompetence in front of his superiors. The timing, student reactions, and unexpected consequences made it a perfect. The next story from XX Loose Way. Next. New purse check rule, absolutely mandatory. I work 3 jobs. The hours and days vary. My full-time job is in an office space on a very fancy modern officer with a great company. They have some great amenities on site too, a full gym, lockers and showers, full cafeteria, etc. My second job is close to full-time, FT, depending on other employees' availability, no set schedule, very chaotic and not well ran. It's a boutique just a bus ride from my office, and it's all in a very busy downtown tourist port city by the ocean. The thing is, it's a tourist boutique. It's all city-branded trinkets, shirts, postcards and gifts. There's really not much any locals would want unless buying it for out-of-town family. Third job is a fast food place. I'm often between these 2 jobs and don't have time to run home between. I carry a gym bag with me with my tiny purse, wallet inside, along with clean business professional clothes, gym clothes, and work uniforms to change in and out of. Extra underwear, it's summer and extremely hot, and our buses don't usually ever have AC, so if there's time, I'll shower at the office and I have travel-sized shower items. A book for the bus rides. I don't have a car, lunch and snacks, hairbrush. Apparently, the boutique has experienced a lot of loss, something we had previously brought up being an issue because our boss, the owner, will have big tables and buckets of items outside by the sides of the door where we can't monitor them, especially if we're inside with customers. People definitely take advantage, and we've seen a lot of people grab things and just talk off. These aren't the cheaper items in the store either. We've lost an entire display of mid-priced sunglasses, handfuls of bikini separates, and at one point, the entire table was emptied in a snatch and run with about 5 younger people. But he thinks it's us stealing things. His wife runs the store, she's always in. She said we have a new mandatory bag check, and every employee in the store is a woman who usually carries a purse or bag. It's not just a quick look through the bag. She wants to remove the items and feel around the sides of the bag and make sure we aren't taking any trinkets and items. I'll be honest, I haven't seen anybody on staff, there's 4 of us, ever steal anything. And I don't even think it's because they're all stand-up employees. I think it's because they don't care to own any of the cheap, tacky tourist items. Because my bag is bigger, it's been kind of a nightmare for me. She wants me to take every individual item out of my bag and show there's nothing wrapped up inside of it, lay it out across a table by the register. The first day of this, I was late to work because she wouldn't start checking my bag until I clocked out, and then she took her time with a customer, causing me to be almost a half hour late to my other job. I considered that I could just continue getting lockers at my office, but they're day use only. So depending on my schedule, I'd have to make a separate trip to get back to the office before the building closed to remove my items, and it wouldn't be feasible with my other jobs. I'm honestly pretty sure the staff who cleans the lockers at the end of the day probably wouldn't mind and would work something out for me, but I don't feel like I need to go out of my way to keep a steady rotation on a locker. If my boutique manager wants to make things awkward and difficult on me, I'm going to turn around and do it right back to her. She is a very tightly wound conservative lady, so I added a few extra items to my gym bag. I don't get my period, but I picked up a menstrual cup. Period talk makes her absolutely faint. I included some new reading material, old 70s Playboys I keep at the house for aesthetic purposes, and I just like them. I swapped in some of my sexiest and functionally impossible underwear, but also one of my grainiest of panties. I also, for no reason at all, included condoms, furry handcuffs, a gag gift at my sister's bachelorette party, and I picked up a pamphlet at a nearby community centre for their group therapy for bereavement. It went off perfectly at the end of my shift. There were customers in the store, and she made me go through my bag item by item, opening them up and holding it up so she could check to make sure there was nothing hidden. I carefully fanned out my old magazines to show there was nothing between the pages. I pulled out each set of panties like a creepy fashion show, holding them up to the light so she could see directly through the lace. Every item we pulled out of the gym bag made her more and more flush. She was uncomfortable. She could barely perform the check. She nearly had a panic attack when I pulled out a little sandwich baggie with a menstrual cup in it. I even pulled out the pamphlet and set it aside slowly with intent to seem affected by it, and she looked at me quizzically and kind of confused, asked what this is about, and I said solemnly, "Oh, I haven't lost anybody, but it's a great place to meet new people." I pulled the condoms out right after saying that. My second back check was definitely faster than the first, and I was finished and out the door in time to catch my bus and arrive to work early actually. Speed running the bag check wasn't my initial plan, but it was definitely an unconsidered plus to the situation. I honestly don't mind doing a back check if they really feel like it's so necessary, but the invasiveness of making every employee pull out inside everything in their bags on a table where every customer in the store has a plain view of everything they have is a little much, and purposely making it take so much time that it's interfering with our other jobs and personal lives is crossing the line. But now, I'm kind of excited to see what other items I can include in my gym bag just to keep her on her toes. I don't want it to be too obvious, but just enough to make her consider that a lady's bag is usually private, and upending that for all our customers to see might not be great for business. Edit. Thank you all for the information about bag checks having to be performed before clocking out. I definitely did not know that and will be bringing it up with my coworkers and the manager. Update. Bag checks are officially cancelled. Day 2, the rest of the employees and I gave the manager the information about back checks needing to be completed on paid time. She absolutely did not appreciate having to stick to our personal time schedules to complete the task. By day 4, all my co-workers and I had brought in so many personal and uncomfortable items that she was no longer felt it necessary to check. Thank you all for the suggestions. The malicious compliance was absolutely flawless, strategic, hilarious, and effective. By weaponizing discomfort, the employees turned an invasive policy into an unbearable ordeal for management. It wasn't just petty revenge. It was a masterclass in reclaiming dignity while forcing real change. The next story from Practical Dad Advice. Malicious compliance to malicious compliance. I run a repair shop where I employ a bunch of local kids, ages 16 plus, to learn skills and make some money, while we generally sit around and talk about the world while we fix things. We had a client come in with a busted electronic. We fixed it up for her and gave her a decent discount on the work. Her final bill for parts and 4 hours of labor was $100 even, discounted down from $220. She didn't like the bill. She didn't like the work. She claimed that we'd broken something else. She claimed that the kid who did the work didn't know what she was doing. She did, and I had supervised her, and that the kid who helped her in the front room was rude to her. He wasn't, but she didn't like the little pride flag pin he was wearing. She demanded to see the manager. So I popped out, listened to her tear into my kids, validated how she was feeling, but pointed out that the work she had asked for was done correctly, and her bill was due on pickup of the piece. The last straw for her came when she pulled out a credit card, and I had to inform her that we don't accept that particular card. She literally asked me "Do you know who I am?" Which I didn't, still don't care. And I told her we'd take a personal check. She wrote out a check, problem solved. I deposited the day's checks and got a note from my bank that one had bounced. Her check, of course. I called her the next day to inform her that her check had been returned for insufficient funds and that she'd need to come in and pay her bill, plus the extra fee for a returned check. All of these fees, just to point this out, were clearly outlined on the service agreement she'd signed. And we'd already discounted her $120, just to be nice. Anyway, she rolls up into the office carrying a bag, and I knew exactly what was going on. She drops, of course, a bag of pennies on the front desk. She's breathing heavily. We're on the second floor and she'd taken the stairs, and she announces triumphantly that she's here to pay her bill. She just needs to go get the rest of our hard-earned money, said with a sneer, of course. The kid at the front desk looks like he's about to cry, so I stop working on the thing I'm working on and take over. "How many more bags do you have?" I ask her, and she says that the nice people at the bank loaded them up in her car. She didn't count them. I told her that was fine. We'd wait for her to bring them all up and then settle up her bill. She was expecting a bigger reaction, I think. Either that or she hadn't thought this through. 10,000 pennies, plus the extra $25, weighs a lot. And she'd just committed to carrying them through a parking lot and up a flight of stairs. One of my kids, bless his heart, offered to help her carry them. She refused. Finally, shaking and sweaty, she deposited the last of the bags on the countertop. The pennies were loose, not in coin rolls. She'd done some work to prove her point. What she hadn't counted on was that we'd need to count the pennies. While the other kids took care of other clients and fixed things in the back, the front desk guy and I counted up the pennies. She started to realize that this was going to take a while and tried to leave. I told her that she couldn't leave until we'd signed off on her bill, since at this point she was in violation of her service agreement and had passed a bad check. We couldn't just take her word for it, and I would inform our local constabulary if she left without paying. I was kind of talking out of my ass, but she'd managed to tick me off a little. The other clients in the shop came and went, and we counted. Phone calls came in and were handled by my kids, and we counted. She sat down in a chair, folding steel, not super comfortable, stood up again, walked around the office, and we counted. After a while, she said, "Just forget it," and took out $125 in bills. We signed off on her agreement and she started to leave. Another one of my kids, bless his heart, asked her if she wanted help carrying the pennies back to her car. She looked at all of us with a face of sheer panic, mumbled, "No thank you, just keep 'em," and bolted. The whole shop was silent for a moment. Then one of the kids started giggling, and nobody could stop. People coming in thought we'd gone nuts, and I finally had to banish everybody to the back room until they could breathe again. We loaded the bags into my vehicle. We used the elevator she'd walked by a few times, took them to the bank, and used the coin machine to deposit them. Then wrote out a donation to our local shelter for the amount she'd dropped off. She posted something nasty on Facebook about it and got ratios. She had, of course, posted earlier about what she was going to do, and she got called out with her own post. My favorite response was something like, "You said you were going to pay your bill in pennies. You paid your bill in pennies. What went wrong?" Please don't pay your bills in pennies, folks, especially if you're just doing it to be a dick. Office thermostat must be left at 16 degrees Celsius. This was a flawless, malicious compliance. Calm, patient, and executed to perfection. The customer wanted to be difficult, but every move backfired spectacularly. Making her suffer through the tedious penny count was brilliant, and donating the money was the ultimate cherry on top.